former Governor Bud Sinner. I wasn't going to let him go because I had an interesting conversation, Bud, over the weekend with my daughter, and we were talking about economic times, and we were talking about time eras. And in fairness to her, this one was born in 1984. So for her to remember the 80s and what you as governor were able to do to try to help people in the 80s, she's not going to. She was just a little girl. But she said, she questioned me on whether or not I remember tough economic times around. And I said, wait a second here. I said, the 80s weren't that good. And Bud, describe to me how you view that time in North Dakota's history.
Well, there were two problems. We had the second largest, most significant drought in our history going on in the middle 80s. There were some 11 states affected by it. It was the second worst drought since the 30s. And I don't think we realized how bad it got until suddenly we had foreclosures everywhere. And it wasn't just the farms were going down. The banks were faced with disaster. Because if they foreclosed on a farm, they had 3 years in which to sell it because of state law. Under state law, the banks couldn't hold the farm. They had 3 years to sell it. There was no market. And we had banks just teetering, just absolutely teetering. And after we got the budget straightened out that first month and I took office, we started on this one because we knew how big it was. We had several banks just hanging on. And we struggled with the Farm Credit Service manager, a guy named Larry Biegler. We went to St. Paul to meet. We worked and worked and worked. One night, I couldn't sleep. I was awake at 4, and I started thinking. Suddenly, I realized what the problem was. They had to quit foreclosing, rewrite the loan with the farmers, let them stay as long as they can hang on, but provide in the new terms that they had a chance to recover their losses. The bank did for a 10-year period, 10 or 15. I said recommended 10. I called Larry as soon as I got to the office, and he said, oh, my God, that's the answer. Of course, that's the answer. It was spread statewide. We saved the banks. We couldn't save the farms. We postponed their demise until probably 95. And the 90s was when it really got bad because the money ran out. I was the lead governor on ag, and we got the farm to ag department to spend some money. We got I think $6 million into North Dakota in the fall of 1987 from farm programs we devised to deal with the emergency of the drought. So it was unbelievable. That's where the migration to the cities began. As the farms closed, these people one by one, but now they at least had some time to plan.
Yeah,
and they
didn't lose their holdings.
They didn't lose their home immediately. They had time to plan. And their transfer to the cities was a little more orderly. It was painful, God knows, and we lost the farms anyway.
What do you think, as an ag producer yourself, and you raised, as you said, 10 kids off a farm, what do you think farmers take for granted today? Because there seems to be this cavalier attitude amongst some, and I got in trouble on this very show because the North Dakota Farm Bureau took a policy stance that they don't want any ag program whatsoever. Get rid of the complete ag program. And I went on air and I pointed out what the board members of the North Dakota Farm Bureau had received in ag support through the years on what I believe is a good farm program. Got all kinds of trouble here at work. Oh my goodness. This is when you got to go up to the second floor and you end up having to talk, and I've been there, done that. But my point is this. To me, I think that farmers themselves, or at least this generation that's my age or younger, really don't know what your generation went through to provide those safety nets. And so I don't want to lose this opportunity for you to talk to them about that.
There were two big factors. There was the drought, but there was also the dollar. All of our foreign sales, all of them, and a huge percentage of the ag production in the United States goes into foreign markets. In all of those cases, it's sold with the dollar. That means that the Japanese buyer must first buy the dollar. Well, the dollar got so damn high priced.
Yeah.
Nobody could afford the dollar. So nobody could buy our food. So the local farm market just went in the tank. And it was the dollar that caused the trouble as much as the drought. So this is not all about rain and good farming practices and big equipment. Not that. It's not all that's part of that, but it's all these these economic forces and the weather forces that suddenly can change it so dramatically. Without a farm program, you're going to have chaos in this country.
I remember going to Winnipeg with my wife to the Fort Garry Hotel, and beautiful. You've been there many times, I'm sure, and spoke at many different conventions there. And I'm like, whoa, this is not where we're used to staying, type of a thing. And I went to pay my bill, and because of the exchange rate at the time, it cost me, I think, $49 American, and that was not that long ago. I certainly still remember it. And when you say that everything is based upon the value of a dollar, think about those Canadians and think about what they were getting in exchange for that. And so it does matter. That is the standard bearer for currency in the world. I mean, it really is. And then you couple that with no crop, with an inflated rate of what people think that farm land was worth. You already had that double-edged sword, and so they're sitting there, and I'll never forget somebody looking at me saying, I never said my land was worth this much. It was the people who put that in place that told me that my land was worth this much. It was Farm Credit that did that. And so I always applaud Sarah Vogel and the work that she did at a time like that. I know you worked very closely with her. And
I didn't help her that much. She did. She's a bright lady.
But they needed advocates. Yep. They really did. And I think that sometimes, the people that I care so much about, the ag producers out there, tend to forget from whence they came.
Well, it's not a simple world. And when you're at one end of the production of the issue, here you are, the production end, you suddenly can be subjected to all sorts of outside forces, some weather, some economic. If the dollar goes up again, I'm telling you, the market's going to change so dramatically, we'll be sitting here with our heads spinning.
Well, what we can't control is whether or not it rains, but what we can control is whether or not the nation as a whole believes in a food policy.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm trying to get across.
Yep, I agree.
But always just an honor to be able to speak to you. Thanks for coming in today.
Oh, Joel, I you know that I love the public policy issues, and I've worked hard at them, and I'm delighted to be here. You do a great job.